Hello and welcome back, future scientists. I'm Mr. K with Mississippi Public Broadcasting. I have a little bit of a review I wanted to do with y'all. We've been talking about a lot of complicated stuff, so I wanted to give y'all a chance to kind of work through some of it, and then I'm going to help review it with y'all on the board up here. So teacher, if you could, go ahead and pass that worksheet out. It's only about 10 questions or so. Y'all take 10 or 15 minutes to work on it, and then when you're done and ready for the review, y'all can come back to me and I'll do it on the board behind me. All right, I'm sure that didn't give y'all any problem, but just in case it did, I'm going to review it with y'all up here. So give me y'all's attention and we'll go ahead and start making our way through this. So let's see what's going on here. All right. So number one says we're really working with two different scientists, and what we're trying to do is decide which terms or vocabulary words they kind of came up with and are known for. So number one says, which scientist corresponds to the following statements? And our answer choices are either Charles Darwin or Lamarck, which remember his whole thing, well, I don't want to get into it too much before we answer the question. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so number one there says survival of the fittest. Which of these two scientists really dealt with survival of the fittest? Was that Darwin or was that Lamarck? That was Darwin. Charles Darwin, remember, that's a big idea that he had, was evolution by natural selection, and survival of the fittest was a big part of that. Okay, so let's do the next one then, use or disuse. Okay, which scientist was this? This is going to be letter B, Lamarck. Remember, he was thinking the thing with the giraffes, and why do giraffes have such long necks? Well, it's because they're using their necks a lot to stretch and find those leaves, so that must be why the necks are so long. That was the common theory before Charles Darwin arrived, but it's later since then has been disproven. All right, how about acquired traits? So this is like inheritance of acquired traits. This is Lamarck again. He was thinking not only do those giraffes have long necks because they're stretching for the leaves so much, but when they reproduce, because their necks are long, they must be passing on that long neck to their offspring. Again, this has later been disproven. All right, the last one here is natural selection. We should definitely know that that's Charles Darwin. That was a big part of his theory. Okay, great work. All right, so let's keep this going. All right, here's a couple more. So 2 says, the process in which organisms have variation most suited to their local environment survive and leave more offspring. So what term should we go with for here? Well, I think a really important word here is survive, right? And we can see down here survival of the fittest. And so survival of the fittest, not only do you have to survive in order to get to the age where you're able to reproduce, but leaving behind more offspring. Remember, this is a really important part about being fit. If you want to be fit, you really, really have to leave behind offspring in a biological term, right? Okay, let's keep it going. 3, what do we call change over time? So here are a couple different options. What I really want us to know is that D, evolution. An easy way to say this, if someone asks you what is evolution, you can say it's just change over time, right? That's all it really is. These organisms are changing over time, but we also change over time. If you make a mistake one day, you're going to try not to make that same mistake the next day. So that's all evolution is change over time. All right, here's the next one. 4, the ability of an organism to survive and reproduce. Okay, we were kind of talking about this one earlier. A, we want to go with fitness again. Not only is surviving a big part of it, but like I said earlier, reproducing is a big part of it. Because if you reproduce, you leave behind more offspring. Those offspring have your genes in them. Okay, so that's a big part of it. All right, I got a couple more. Let's keep it going. So 5 here says, Lamarck's idea about evolution included the concept that differences among the traits of organisms arise because. Okay, so what was his idea about what's really going on here? Okay, so I think we should go with letter C. The actions of organisms as they use or fail to use body structures. Again, so this is that term that we saw up there in number 1, use or disuse, right? So if an organism is using a body part a lot, it must be very important and it's going to get bigger or stronger. That's how he justified giraffes having long necks. They're stretching for those leaves a lot, they're using those necks, and so that's why those traits are so extreme, right? That's why the necks are so long, is because they're stretching them a lot. All right, let's keep it going. So 6 says, the possible cause for the finches on the Galapagos Islands to have beaks that are different from the finches living on the South American mainland. Okay, so what do we think here? All right. What I really want us to know, remember those islands had different food available on them. Some of the islands only had a lot of insects. Some of the islands had only a lot of seeds and nuts. And so depending on what food was available for the finches to eat, their beaks slowly over time changed to be better at eating those types of insects, right? Imagine you're on the island where there's a lot of seeds and nuts, and that's the only thing for you to eat. Well, the individual finches that have the biggest, strongest beaks are going to be the ones that have the most access to food, because they can crack the nuts and they're able to survive. Well, if they're surviving when the ones with the weaker beaks aren't surviving, then when they reproduce, that trait is going to be more common, because the big beak individuals reproduced more than the little beaked individuals. And so that's why over time that island had all these finches with these big, strong, powerful beaks, is because slowly they adapted to the environment they were in. So 7, let's move on. 7. Who is credited with the theory of evolution by natural selection? That's definitely Charles Darwin. Okay, that was his big idea. Some scientists and philosophers say that that is the best idea ever had, which I think is kind of hard to quantify, but I mean, it is very, very important. All right, so number 8 says, who said populations are controlled by war, disease, and famine? I don't think I ever gave y'all this exact quote, but I do want us to know that this is Malthus. Remember, he was that economist, right? He was studying the economy a lot, and he said that a population can only get as big as the resources that it's able to support. So, you know, if there's not enough food and water, well, then the population can't get that large. If you have a lot of food and water that can support all those people, then the population can get really big. So I hope those made sense. I hope y'all didn't have too much trouble with that. Your teacher has some other work for you to do, so make sure to give that your best effort, and I hope everybody has a great day.